Hello, welcome to Scatterdight Guy. We're talking, as always, about Warhammer the Old World. And in this episode, I want to talk specifically about a little league that I'm involved with some friends of mine. And we're going to have a look at lists for my next game that I've got coming up and just use it as an opportunity to just talk a little bit about um, kind of how to analyze other players' lists, how to kind of spot the things that you're going to need to be prepared for and plan for. So yeah, we'll get straight into it. So just to give you a bit of background, so myself and a group of friends all around the Reading area in the south of England have all been sort of forming a little group, playing games every now and again. And we decided a couple of months ago, wouldn't it be great to run our own little kind of mini league? So there's 7 of us, and we're running the league in 2 rounds, each lasting 6 months. So the idea is that if everybody plays everybody, then we all play 6 games, and that's 1 game a month for 6 months. Got the pack here that we put together for it. I'll just take you through a few of the headlines on here. Armies are 2,000 points. We're not running any kind of really crazy comp or anything like that. This is largely as it is out of the rulebook. So any Grand Army or Army Infantry list can be used, and we're just running the combined arms rules from the match play guide. So there's a few restrictions there in terms of just making sure that people aren't absolutely spamming things. Legacy factions are permitted using the Legends PDFs and the extra amendments in the square-based Renegade pack. So the square-based Renegade pack is really the only element of the rules here that's not kind of standard out-of-the-box Games Workshop Old World rules. And we're currently in the first round. And for the first round, what we decided to do was we're going to run fixed lists. So everybody writes a list. We all submit them at the same time a few weeks ago. And that's your list for your first 6 games. For the second half, we're doing something a bit different, but that's not what we're talking about now. We made a few tweaks to how allies work. That was really just to do with preferences of some of the guys in the group and things they wanted to be able to play with. Obviously, there's issues with allies, particularly if you're running the legacy factions, because generally the legacy factions have got a sort of fully fleshed out set of allies they can take, but the core factions, none of the core factions will list any of the legacy factions as options for allies. So we kind of expanded that and went a little bit further just by agreement in the group. We planned who's playing who, and then we're playing match play guide scenarios. What we thought would be fun would be to kind of randomize it, so nobody knows before the game what you're going to be playing. So there's 6 scenarios in the match play guide, so it makes it very easy. We just turn up, roll a d6, and we pick a scenario. We're running every game to 6 rounds. Obviously, if there's any primary objectives, so match play guide primary objectives apply, and then secondary objectives. If it's mandatory in the scenario, so some scenarios will require certain secondary objectives to be in play, then we apply them. And then if it's listed as an optional secondary objective, again, we randomize it. So we roll dice and we see what's in play, what isn't in play. So that's quite fun. You never really know until you're there at the table what you're going to be faced with in terms of the scenario, in terms of the objectives, which can make this quite interesting. We're running the terrain from the square-based terrain picking system. What we've done here, the TPS map sets are based upon the scenarios out of the rulebook. So there's 6 scenarios in the rulebook, but because we're playing the match play guide scenarios, what we've done is we just kind of correlated. So if you're playing this scenario for the match play guide, use the TPS map set for that scenario. So yeah, that's how we're doing that. We've got a few specific rules we've added for things like woods and buildings. We quite like the idea of being able to occupy buildings, so they're not just these sort of obstacles on the terrain. They're actually something you can interact with. So we've we just put a few things around that, and then rules about how we score it, rules for models, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the league. That's what we're doing. And my next game, in fact, before we go into that, I'll just share my list so you know what I've got list wise. So I'm playing Bretonnia. I'm not the quickest hobbyist in the world, so I mean, when Old World came out, I'd sold all my old Warhammer Fantasy stuff a few years back, having not really played it for a very long time, and then decided to get back into it with Old World. So I basically started afresh from scratch. So I spent most of the sort of the first 3/4 of the last 2 years just getting the Bretonnian starter box painted up. And then I've added to that a few character models, but that's pretty much what I've got in terms of choice. So um, what that means is that I have a list which largely writes itself. The starter box is designed to provide you kind of straight out the box, like a sort of a 1250 point army. And then I've added, you can see I've got a couple of special characters and an extra wizard, which fills out, and then a few magic items, etc. On top of that, fills out the extra 750 points. So yeah, I don't have a lot of kind of choice. There's not anything like particularly clever going on with this list writing. The good thing with Bretonians is that what you get in the starter box is actually, a good set, particularly with the FAQ 1.5 and FAQ and Errata 1.5 and the buffs um, to infantry, so things like men at arms. Now, they were probably at the start of the game a bit of a tax, but now they're actually, potentially, although they're not, the greatest infantry in the game, they are potentially a useful unit. So, yeah, you can see. I'll just talk you through what I'm running. So my general is a Duke on the Royal Pegasus. And then in terms of fit out, I've given him the Heartwood Lance, so that gives him strength +3 and armor piercing 3 and magical attacks. He can only use that on the charge, so he's quite hard hitting on the charge. And obviously, being on the Royal Pegasus, he's got fly. He's got a long threat projection range. He's got swift stride. So I should be getting the charge. But he's a character really that relies, on hitting very hard on that charge, and is less powerful. Still a good fighty character, but not as punchy. Obviously, if he gets bogged down into a combat. He's also got Virtue of the Joust. I really like this combination with Heartwood Lance and Virtue of the Joust. There's nothing terribly clever going on there, but it's just, if you're going for a fighty character who's going to hit hard on the charge, then these work well in combination. So Virtue of the Joust lets you re-roll failed rolls to wound. With Weapon Skill 7, he's probably he's hitting the majority of models he's going to hit on a 3 or even a 2 if he's against something that's weapon skill 3 or lower. So that's quite good. He's got a good chance. He's got of his 5 attacks, he's got a good chance of getting quite a few of those attacks through. And then strength 8 with armor piercing 3 and re-rolling failed rolls to wound. There's a good chance we're going to get probably 3 or 4 wounds into someone before saves, and that AP3 is quite punchy as well. The other thing I've given him, he's got a shield, obviously, so shield, heavy armor, and on the Royal Pegasus, so that gets him to a 3-up armor save, and he's going to get the Bretonnian ward save as well, assuming I pray at the start. Although I think with the Grailvar he may not even need to pray. I think I check. Yes, he doesn't need to pray. So if I don't pray, he still gets the ward save, which is good. But the other thing I've given him is a great weapon. It's just a couple of points for that, but the real reason there is if he does get bogged down in the combat, he's still strength 5 with his hand weapon. But if I want to forego the fighting first with his relatively decent initiative of 5, I could use the great weapon and give him, a bit more punch there. Other things on my list, I've got Elise Duchar. Obviously, she just runs as she is. Interesting character. I'm in two minds currently. I know when the army first came out and she first was released as a special character, stunning model. Bit mixed in terms of a character, in my opinion. She's got some real pluses. So things like the arcane backlash rule. Firstly increases the chances that she's going to dispel things. She's also gets a buff to her dispel rolls, so she is a very strong dispeller. She's only a level 3 wizard, but obviously with the 1.5 update, that now doesn't hamper her in terms of rolls to cast and dispel in the way that it originally did. So that's good. But yeah, the fact that she is only level 3 to me seems a bit odd. Like, this is supposed to be a super powerful wizard character, special character, and yet she's only level 3. The other thing is she's tied to illusion, which is not a terrible. Not to illusion, to elementalism, which is not a terrible law, but probably wouldn't be my first choice personally. But she's in there. We've got the Green Knight. So we're not running any kind of comp or rules tweaks or anything like that. So the Green Knight, in this case, will run as per the book. So the key things there are that he can charge on a turn that he appears, and also if he's slain but then comes back to life again, the opponent doesn't get the points. So there could be some interesting ways to use that. Like obviously being ethereal, there's a lot of things that can't hurt him, and you'll often that will often be part of the strategy to kind of get him into combat with things that actually can't really deal him any damage. But if there are things that possibly could, he can be a good option just to hold them up early in the game. If you roll him turn 1, you could go charge him into some great big monster that he's probably not going to manage to defeat. But if it kills him turn 2, turn 3, there's still a good chance actually that he might come back again, and I'm not giving up any points there. So there's possibly some strategies there. I've then got a level 4 prophetess, and she's running battle magic. And I had a few points to spare, so I've given her the earthing rod, which basically lets her re-roll. And gets re-roll on the miscast table. I just checked the rule. Yeah, so if she miscasts and then rolls one of the bad results on the miscast table, obviously bear in mind, miscasting isn't always terrible. But if she does roll something that's a real issue, then I have an option there to re-roll that. The rest of the army, say basically it's the Bretonnian launch box. So I've got 24 peasant bowmen with a full command, and I'm running them with the defensive stakes. So these guys generally they're just going to sit, in the middle of the board or sit on a hill somewhere where they've got good sight lines, can get their shooting off. Obviously they've got long bows, so they've got a long 30-inch range. So most scenarios they're going to be able to sort of start peppering the enemy quite early. They've got volley fire as well. So if I stick them on a hill, potentially you can be getting 20 shots off a turn. With the 2 ranks and then half the 3rd rank, which is I normally deploy them with 3 ranks, and then giving them the defensive stakes just means, certainly in terms of frontal charges, they're a bit more survivable when the enemy does get to them. 171 points, so they're this is a unit, where if the enemy manages to close and get into combat with them, there's a decent number of them, but it depends on what they're in combat with. I'm not necessarily expecting them to last the battle. 2 units of men at arms, similarly, quite all right units now with the new infantry rules, and relatively cheap. So to me, peasants and men at arms are kind of almost disposable units. There's about 500 or just under 500 points there that I would anticipate that we might give up during the games, and I'm not too worried about preserving them. I'm more going to use them, hopefully to kind of lock an enemy in combat, so I can then come in, into a flank, say, with a unit of knights. The men-at-arms, again, straight out of the box, are 2 units of 18 men-at-arms, full command. They've also got the Grail Monk, who's basically an extra champion, and he has the Blessed Triptych, which gives them stubborn, and they also have the Shield Wall special rule. So what that basically means is the first round of combat, they're not going to break. So the stubborn lets them choose to fall back in good order rather than to take a break test. They can just automatically fall back in good order. And then with Shield Wall, you can also, rather than falling back in good order, just give ground. So that those two things in combination make them quite pokey, quite good at kind of holding something at least for a round. Which is quite good. So they can take a charge and stay put, which is helpful. I've got 2 units of 6 mounted knights of the realm. Again, straight out of the box, full command. So champion, standard bearer, musician. I've also given both of these a magic standard. So the first one, I have the War Banner, which just gives you an extra +1 combat res. My experience with Knights of the Realm, they are a great unit for a kind of core cavalry, but they're not actually the hardest hitting cav in the game. They're quite soft, and particularly into infantry now. They're probably going to struggle, particularly if the infantry's got a decent amount of static combat res. So giving them that extra combat res can be quite helpful. And I've also got the Sword of Might on the champion here, so that just gives him strength +1, AP1, magical attacks. So again, just think about if they get into a combat and they're going to hit up with their lances in the first round, but gives them a bit more stay. The second unit, very similar here. I've gone with the Banner of Chalons. I've had some terrible experiences with knights just kind of trying to charge into things where I get absolutely demolished by stand and shoot. So the Banner of Chalons, you can't make a stand and shoot reaction. So that's really powerful. And that's so just think I'll need to think in my games about placement of that unit, to make sure that unit is charging anything that's got the ability to stand and shoot, and I can shut that down. And again, the champion here's got Sword of Striking. This gives him magic attacks, and it gives him a +1 modifier to hit, which is quite nice. So again, if we are in a scenario where they're getting bogged down into a combat for multiple rounds, at least my champion has got something a little bit extra up his sleeve. And then my final unit of 3 Pegasus Knights, and I've got a champion in this unit as well. So that's my list. Now I've already played one game. I played my friend Gavin, who's playing Empire. It was one of those games. It was quite a closely fought game until very near the end, and then things kind of fell apart for me. He had a few things in his list that I just did not have a response to. So particularly, he had a general on a hippogriff who was just incredibly powerful, incredibly fighty, and I didn't really have an answer for that. I made a few strategic blunders as well. But yeah, so that was the first game. Moving into the second game, I'm playing my friend Ivan, and Ivan's playing Skaven. So I've got Ivan's list here, and I thought it'd be really interesting to have a little chat through Ivan's list. And particularly, what are the things here which are a problem that I'm going to need to really think about? Ivan, I think, is I've only played Ivan once before. We played a small 500-point foray game, and I did win. But I think he's been quite committed to his Skaven. He's got a few different armies, but he loves his Skaven, and he's been really working on kind of refining that. And I think he's got to a point. I know Skaven in the meta at the minute haven't been something generally that's particularly powerful. That people are particularly worried about, but actually. I think he's been doing really well at kind of refining his lists and his strategies with Skaven. Certainly doing well in some of the games in the group. So yeah, this is quite an interesting 2,000 point Skaven list. So he starts off with a Grey Seer, who is a level 3 wizard. He's got D3 Warpstone tokens. So what that means is he gets to roll a D3 at the start of the game to work out how many tokens he's got. And then every time he's casting a spell, or it might be once per turn, I'll just check the rule, before making a casting roll. So he can do this every time he wants to cast a spell. And he rolls a d3, and then he gets to add that to his casting roll. So that's quite a good buff. Gives him, quite a good ability to get off quite powerful spells. Makes it quite hard to dispel. There is a risk attached to that. So if he rolls a 1, and he's only rolling a d3, so 1 in 3 times he's going to do this. He's going to lose a wound, which on a character with only 3 wounds, that potentially could be a bit of a hit. So there's a bit of challenge there, but used carefully at the right points, this could really help him get off really critical spells and make it very hard for me to dispel critical spells. Now I do have, jumping back to my list, Elise Duchar, who does have this really cool rule, Arcane Backlash. So should she roll any natural double when making a dispel roll, except for a double 1, the spell is unbound, so it gets dispelled, and the casting wizard immediately loses a single wound. So this is quite powerful. So this means it does kind of buff my dispel ability. It means that even if I roll, like, say, a double 2, because it's a double, it will count as a dispel. So one of the things I'm going to want to think about in my game with Ivan is probably, like, really tactically, where do I put her, making sure that she's always with, got that 24-inch bubble. She's always in a position to be able to dispel, so that, if we do have those critical moments, I've got a better chance of dispelling. If we look at the rest of the loadout on this character, you'll see why that's going to be really critical. So he's given this character the Giant Blade. So this is a magic weapon, strength +1, which is, it's a strength 3 character. So it's not super high strength, but it's going to, it's coming in at strength 4. No AP, but it has armor bane 2 and multiple wounds 2. So that's not a bad magical weapon. We then look and see that he's running illusion, and he's also got a lore familiar. So that means he can pick the spells that he wants to run. And particularly in illusion, what I'm really worried about here is Spectral Doppelganger. So this is a character that, he wants to get into combat. And if he can cast Spectral Doppelganger, he's only is it 2 attacks? Yeah, only got 2 attacks. So not normally what you would consider a fighty character. 2 attacks, weapon skill 3. So particularly, if he's engaged in a challenge with, like this guy versus my Duke. Normally, no contest. The Duke's going to demolish him. However, if he can cast Spectral Doppelganger, he gets 2d6 hits using any weapon he carries. So that includes magical weapons. So what's going to happen there is he's going to score potentially 2d6 strength 4 hits with armor bane 2, and 2d6 hits. There's a good chance he's getting at least some with armor bane, and with multiple wounds too. So if any of those land, he could be doing potentially a very significant amount of damage. I think Spectral Doppelganger is an incredibly powerful spell when used this way, particularly because it's not limited. It's any weapon that they carry, so they can use it with magical weapons. And just to give you a bit of understanding here, 2d6 hits are going to average 7 hits a turn. that could spike to 12. It could be as low as 2, but on average, we're going to expect 7 hits, and probably most turns it's going to be somewhere between 5 and kind of like 6 and 8 hits probably is going to be the general window that's going to fall in most of the time. It's regardless of weapon skills. So let's say he was fighting my Duke. He's weapon skill 3, my Duke is weapon skill 7. So normally he would only hit on a 5+. He's got 3 attacks. No, 2 attacks. He's got 2 attacks. So if he's normally hitting on a 5+, he might get one of those attacks. On average, he's going to hit, maybe with none, maybe with 1 in the average round. And then obviously we'll see if he wounds and etc. If he can cast Spectral Doppelganger, he's scoring 7. So that's essentially the same damage output as if he had 21 attacks, which is enormous. Essentially 21 attacks with the Giant Blade, and each of those attacks, no AP, but it does have Armor Bane 2, and does have multiple wounds too. So, every wound that goes through is then becoming 2 wounds. So really, really powerful. And if he gets that off against my Duke, for example, it's entirely possible that he could be my Duke's 5 wounds on the Pegasus. He only needs 3 of his hits to wound with multiple wounds too to then score enough wounds that obviously armor saves and things in there as well, but he could kill my Duke in a single turn with that spell. Very, very powerful. So really well sort of loaded out character here. The combination of the Giant Blade, Illusion, and the Lore Familiar, which guarantees he's going to get Spectral Doppelganger. He's obviously then also got choice in terms of Law of the Horned Rats if he wants to take something from that for the signature spell. There's some good spells in here, and the one particularly I'm going to highlight is Warp Lightning. It's a high casting value, but again, with the Warpstone tokens, that might help him. Magic Missile, range of 18. The target enemy unit suffers D3 plus 1 strength 5 hits with an AP of 3. So, gonna average 2 or 3 hits. If he's able to target specific characters with that, again, that could be doing a lot of damage. Strength 5, hitting at strength 5, AP 3. That's a spell that maybe worries me a bit. Last thing to note, something across all of his characters, they've all got Warpstone weapons. So if they're fighting with a normal hand weapon, it gives them magical attacks and AP1. Why is that relevant? Mainly because of my Green Knight. So even if they don't have a magical weapon, all of his characters have got some comeback to the Green Knight, to the Ethereal rule. Moving on, he's got a Plague Priest. He's just level 1. He's on foot with Battle Magic. He is a more fighty character. So weapon skill 5, strength 4, toughness 5. He's got initiative 5. Skaven generally very high initiative. So, he's going to be swinging first a lot of the time. In some cases, even if I charge, he's likely to swinging first. They're also, generally, a little bit faster. Obviously, I've got a lot of cav. I've got things that can fly, so I'm not too worried about that. But against some armies, quite a high risk of being outmaneuvered. But yeah, so the Plague Priest is quite a fighty character. And with Battle Magic, obviously signature spell there is Hammer Hand, so quite a pokey assailment spell as well. So that could make him quite hard to deal with. He's also got things like this Cloud of Flies rule. So during the combat phase, anyone engaged against that character, anyone that's directing attacks against that character gets -1 to hit. So that helps him defensively as well. He's then got a Skaven Chieftain, another relatively fighty character, so weapon skill 5, strength 4, toughness 4, initiative 6, 3 attacks, and he's got great weapon, heavy armor. He's also a BSB, so obviously hold the line rule there for BSB. And he's got the Banner of Verminous Scurrying, which gives him and any unit he's in swift stride. So that's that's quite powerful. He's got a Charmed Shield, which once per game it gives its bearer a 5+ ward save against a single wound. After that, it's just a normal shield. Now, obviously, he does have a great weapon, so he wouldn't be able to use it as a shield with the great weapon. Something I think I need to check before the game is, does he still get the 5+ ward there? He's also got Skaven Brew, so basically one-off use. He takes a leadership test. If he passes it, he and the unit he's in get the frenzy rule. So that's quite powerful. So yeah, I think he's very much like a kind of a Skaven a low leadership. And so they need to do things to try and accommodate for that. So you'll see in a minute, he's got some quite big units, and he's probably going to put this BSB in one of those big units. He's got Warband. The units have got Warband and Horde. So, he could be in a world where actually he's comfortably getting this up to, say, leadership 9. And then obviously he's got things like the hold the line rule for battle standard bearer. So, gets a re-roll failed checks, basically. Sorry, hold your ground. So he can reroll any failed panic or rally test, and he can reroll when making a break test. So that the risk of his Skaven breaking falling off the table is sort of ameliorated there. Something I've got a lot of is models with first charge. Which lets them disrupt an enemy unit on the first charge of a game. So if I am coming into some of his units where he's relying upon rank bonuses and warband to get the leadership up, then what I can do there is if I hit him, certainly the first round of combat, I can disrupt that, hopefully then get into a flank or something later to make sure he's more permanently disrupted, and I can try and make sure that I'm countering that leadership buff. Next up, he's got a Grey Seer. This is his general. This is a level 4 wizard, again with Warpstone tokens. He's got an Arcane Familiar, which means he can use 2 Laws of Magic. And he's got Demonology, and it's not here, but the other law, he's got his Dark Magic. And then again, also he can also take the signature from the Law of the Horned Rat, should he want to. Another, this is probably more likely to be a character that we're seeing a lot of magic missiles from. I mean, Demonology signature spell is the Summoning, which is quite a powerful magic missile. So I imagine we're going to see a fair bit of that. And then, possibly like buffing spells or things like that for the unit he goes in. And then his last character is a Master Assassin. This guy, he's got a Dragon Slaying Sword. Actually, not something I'm worried about. I don't have any big monsters in my list. So Dragon Slaying Sword in this matchup, not really going to help him. But still a character that I'm kind of worried about. He is weapon skill 8. Even my Duke is going to need to be rolling 4s to hit him. Similarly, the Green Knight's going to be needing rolling 4s. It's not too bad. He's also strength 4, toughness 4, so reasonable survival. Only got 2 wounds. Very high initiative. So again, even on the charge, there's a risk that actually he's swinging first, or certainly swinging simultaneously. If my Duke gets a charge off against him, he's still swinging simultaneously. Potentially slightly difficult character to deal with there. So jumping to core units now, we've got first unit is an enormous unit of 45 Plague Monks. and we can see that a huge amount of points have been dumped into this unit. So 43 points on this unit of plague monks, and this so this is I guess kind of like our sort of Death Star type unit. It's a huge amount of stuff sunk into one unit, and a lot's going to depend really upon whether or not we can deal with and break this. If we want to engage with it, obviously one of the things that we're going to need to think about is, like, do we need to engage with this? So it may be that it's obviously not going to be a terribly maneuverable unit. It might be something we can work around, but if we do want to engage with it, we're going to need to put a lot of thought into how I go about that. So what are the plague marks? I mean, profile wise, not too scary. Yeah, fairly run of the mill profile. They are toughness 4, but apart from that, not too scary. They've got Horde and Warbands. As we talked about, with a unit this size, they're going to get a leadership bonus of 3 from their rank bonus, which they're certainly going to start off with a rank bonus of that, and it's going to take a lot of whittling them down before we actually erode that rank bonus. However, as I pointed out earlier, one of the things we can do is if we can take away that rank bonus, not only does that help in terms of combat res, but it also, in this case, has the double bonus of mitigating the leadership buffs. Now, Ivan's already played a couple of games in the league, so I have some feeling as to how he's going to play this. Generally, what I've seen in the other games he's played, from a few photos I've seen, is that he's playing this very wide, so it's 10 wide. Obviously, what that means is with press of battle, he's going to be in a situation where he's got 20 models that count as in the fighting rank, and with movement 5, there's a good chance they're all going to be in a position where they get to fight and make their attacks. So a lot of attacks. He's also using it very much as like a bunker. So I'm going back to the characters, I'm pretty sure this is a logical place for the Plague Priest. I've also seen in previous games that the Battle Standard Bearer has gone in there, so obviously that gives means that he's always going to be within command range of that unit. And then certainly at least one of the Grey Seers I think is probably going to go in there as well. So very, very sort of big bulked out unit that's kind of a bunker. And again, with Grey Seers at leadership 7, with the leadership buffs, that's basically getting up to leadership 10. But if we can take that away by disrupting him, and remember, my knights have first charge, so that would cause disruption on the first charge of the game. Just checking, yeah, the Pegasus Knights have first charge as well. So, by going into them with those, there's a reasonable chance that actually we could do a fair amount, to debuff that, and if we then later get things into the flanks as well to try and do that to kind of more permanently debuff the leadership there. I think that leadership buffing is like a really key concept here. So it's really important to have a think about, well, how can I respond to that? How can I counter that? If the battle standard goes into this unit, we need to remember they're going to have swift strides. It's going to increase their charge range. So they would go from a charge range of 11 inches to 14. Also, just increases the probability that they might get away from a pursuing unit in a if they do flee, or if they break one of my units, obviously gives them a greater chance of running me down. So so something I probably really want to think about here is making sure that if I do engage these, I don't want to engage them just with one unit. I want to be working on multiple angles, attacking them with multiple things simultaneously to reduce the risks of that. This next unit is a unit of 34 clan rats. Again, I mean, the profile doesn't look too scary. They are initiative 4, so once we're sort of bogged into a combat against most of my units, they are going to be swinging first. But yeah, nothing otherwise, I think, too scary here. But another big block though. Again, they're very likely to be quite deep, so it's going to take quite a while to debuff that leadership unless I can disrupt them. He's got 6 rat swarms. Now the rat swarms individually not too scary, but if he can get them so they're nice and wide, then that can become a problem. So going to need to think about how we engage them. They're in skirmish, so if you think about the way skirmishes form up, particularly what I want to try and do is come at them kind of end on, so that when they form up against me, hopefully at least some of them are too far away to move into the front rank. And therefore I'm not getting hit with a whole 6 wide set of swarms, because if I am, that's 30 attacks. If they're in base to base, even if they're not, there's going to be quite a lot of attacks. And they're quite soft. Their weapons skill 2, their toughness 2. They've got no saves. However, you can't break them. They're unbreakable. They're immune to psychology, and they've got 5 wounds apiece. So it's still going to take quite a lot of work to chew through that. I would suggest. So I guess the risk with the rat swarm is that they could bog me down quite a bit. If the wrong unit gets caught with the rat swarm, and they are skirmishers, so obviously 360-degree charging, etc. The risk is that I could kind of get bogged down with the rat swarm while something else, which is more of a problem, moves in and joins the combat. So that's definitely something I've got to be cautious of. And the final core unit, 12 Night Runners. These feel like the obvious place that the Master Assassin might go, and they work quite well together. So there's a few, like the Master Assassin's got an interesting rule where he can hide in a unit, so the other player will make a note at the start of the game, and then at some point in the game, in any of their start of turn sub phases, which I think is this Eshin infiltration rule. Is it that one? No, not that one. Maybe it's hidden. Here we go, hidden. So yeah, any start of turn sub phase. So that could be my turn as well as my opponent's, or at the start of any combat phase. So I can charge a unit and I won't know until I'm in combat that he's there and that he's in that unit, and then he can appear, and that can be a problem. So it's not guaranteed he'll be with the Night Runners, but that kind of makes sense. 12 of these, they've got throwing weapons, so these, along with the Assassin, are the only models with any kind of ranged weapons in this particular army. So obviously we've got things like magic missiles to worry about as well. But yeah, I'm not too worried. But if I am going to charge these with a unit of Knights of the Realm, I probably want to try and plan so that it's the unit with the banner that means that he can't stand and shoot. They do have things like evasive and fire and flee, so that can be problematic. Evasive means that when I pick on them in the shooting phase, they can fall back in good order and potentially get themselves out of range or get themselves into long range. Fire and flee means obviously they can stand and shoot and then flee. So if they are standing and shooting against a unit, that's an issue. And again, because they're skirmishers, they've got 360 vision arc, so you can't just kind of outflank them or something to try and avoid that. Otherwise, again, high initiative, but otherwise not too scary a stat line. And then the final problem is the Hell Pit Abomination. And this is an absolute beast of a monster. It's a Behemoth. It's got a whole host of special rules and quite a scary looking stat line. So it's a random mover, which means so it goes 3d6. So that's going to average probably 11, 10 or 11 inches. But you know, if he spikes, worst case, that could get up to 18 inches. So that's something I'm just going to have to be quite cautious of. Obviously, like there's no declaring a charge. It will just move and then potentially ends up in combat. Can't maneuver it other than wheeling. However, it does have the lumbering rule. Now, something I need to check before the game because I'm not completely sure. Obviously, normally a random mover can't perform any maneuvers other than a wheel. However, the lumbering rule gives a Behemoth the ability to do a 90-degree pivot after their normal movement. So I'm not quite sure how those two rules work together. I'm going to do a bit more digging on that, work out, you know, does he have that pivot ability? Because that could be very scary if he can kind of move up and then pivot so that he's in a, you know, pointing towards my units, ready to take or you know, deliver a charge. Then that's could be quite scary. Only weapon skill 3, however, strength and toughness 6 with 6 wounds, and it gets d6 plus 1 attacks. So yeah, pretty problematic, pretty scary. That's gonna be pretty hard to kill. You know, almost everything, most of the time, is going to be rolling 6s to wound on toughness 6. Got no saves, but you know, that's quite a tall order. It's going to take a lot to get rid of that 6 wounds. Add to that, it's got regeneration. So say no saves, but it does have regeneration. Regeneration 5+, so that's 1 in 3 wounds that it loses. On average, it's going to regenerate. It's also got this too horrible to die rule, where basically when it loses its last wound, you roll a d6, and if he rolls a 6, gets d3 wounds back. On a 4 or a 5, it doesn't come back, but a swarm of rats bursts from within and appears. So that's not such a worry. But the possibility that you might, you know, in the worst case, you might deal those 6 wounds and then it could come back with another 3 wounds. You know, it could be up to a 9 wound model essentially in the worst case, which is quite scary. Attacks, obviously, that's going to average 4 or 5 attacks, but could be up to 7 at strength 6. But actually, it's some of the other things on it, some of the special rules, which are the real worry. So, this abominable attacks rule is quite scary. So, basically, rather than making its normal attacks, it can instead make one of these attacks. Feed. You nominate a single model that's in base-to-base contact with. If the model is hit, it suffers D3 automatic wounds with no armor save permitted. That's probably, I mean, I don't know when you would declare that. Probably after you've rolled for random attacks. So, you know, if you rolled low on random attacks, then maybe that's might be quite powerful. The one I'm more worried about is the second one, Avalanche of Flesh. So you place a small 3-inch blast template so its central hole is directly over the center of the target unit. Any enemy model, friend or foe, but not including this model, whose base lies underneath the template risks being hit and suffering a single hit using the strength characteristic of this model with an AP of 2. So that's basically at least one, depends on the units or whatever, but at least one guaranteed strength 6 hit with AP2. And so that's obviously, you know, something that could do quite a lot of damage. Other things it's got stomp attacks, D3 plus 1, so that's, you know, going to be averaging 2 or 3. Probably averaging 3, I guess. stomp attacks. So those are obviously automatic hits at strength 6. So that's, quite powerful. It's not shown here for some reason, but if I go into here, we can see it's also got impact hits D3 plus 1. So if it moves into combat, then it's going to get those impact hits, and that's a whole load more damage. So yeah, really quite a scary thing, this Hell Pit Abomination, and quite hard to kill. Particularly, I don't really have anything in my army. I've not got like something that gives me like Monster Slayer or anything like that, which could be quite useful against this. So it's the kind of problem I don't have a great answer to. I think probably strategically my main goal is going to just be to try and avoid engaging with this. Let it run around, and sort of make use of my maneuverability to try and, so far as possible, avoid this. So that's the list. There's a number of problems in here that I need to solve, and obviously my list is fixed, so I need to solve these on the table. What are those problems? First up, I'm worried about this Grey Seer with the Spectral Doppelganger and just the absolutely devastating output potential that might have. What I'm going to want to do is really do my best to avoid getting into a situation where he's actually in combat, or in combat with something that I'm too worried about. Might be that I can just kind of throw something at him. If I can challenge him, if I can challenge him out with, move in with a unit that I'm not too worried about. Something like my Men at Arms, challenge him with the champion, and then obviously limit how much damage he can do. That might be an option there, and then bring other units in that I can come into sort of the flanks of the unit he's bunkered into, that kind of thing, so that at that point he's not going to be able to get to into fighting ranks with other units. Plague Priest, I'm not too worried about. I think he's a fighter character, but I have some pretty fighter characters. Skaven Chieftain, this banner with the Swift Stride, and a Swift Striding unit of Skaven, bit of an issue. I think the other big issues are going to be these two big units. Two very big blocks. If I can hit them hard, do enough damage to break them, and hit them in a way that I'm disrupting them, so they're not getting the leadership buffs. Without buffed leadership from Warband, the highest leadership in his army is leadership 7. So in that scenario, there is a reasonable chance that I could, get him to break, get him to flee or something like that. So that's definitely an option. Other than that, I think the main thing is with these is really going to just be around, making sure I'm engaging them with multiple units in multiple arcs. We're charging this unit of Plague Monks with one of my unit of 6 Knights of the Realm, it's not going to work. If I can get, another unit of Knights, or I can get some infantry in there, or I can get my Pegasus Cav in there, particularly get my Duke in there as well, then we might be in a scenario where we've got a decent chance of doing a bit more damage. So yeah, I think and then looking at the other units, I think probably what I want to focus on is trying to clear these and get the easier points wrapped up quite quickly. So I'm expecting things like the Night Runners and the Rat Swarms. These will probably be, I think, an early target for shooting. The Night Runner's probably an early target for things like my Pegasus Cav. I mean, I expect most of the time what I tend to do is put my general in the Pegasus cav. Just gives him a bit more protection, at least, you know, until one of them is slain, he can't be the target for shooting, so that's helpful. You know, so probably what I want to try and do very early on is take out the Night Runners. You know, if I can engage them early, you know, potentially even turn one, if possible, then that would be great. And then rat swarms may be, you know, a good focus for my archers. You know, if I can just rain, you know, a high volume of arrows down on them on a regular basis. Obviously, T2. So, although they are skirmishers, they're going to be harder to hit. But they, you know, that's a possible option. They've got Vanguard as well, so they're probably coming forwards early. So yeah, I think I would probably you know, focus a lot of shooting on the rat swarms, try and deal with them that way. Magic missiles as well. At the same time as using my Pegasus to try and engage the Night Runners quite quickly. And if I can take those 2 units off the board quickly, I think that puts me in a really strong position. I think that puts me in a position where what he's going to be left with is probably just these 2 big blocks, and I'm imagining the characters would all be bunkered in these big blocks, and then the Hell Pit Abomination. And that will allow me, you know, with my maneuverability to, you know, try and keep away from things like the Hell Pit Abomination that I'm not too keen to engage with, and to you know, encircle and try and hit these bigger blocks with multiple things simultaneously. That's the strategy. The game is coming up in just over a week. And what I thought I'd do is I'll probably make a part 2 to this. So I'm not going to put this video up, obviously, until after the game. And I think what I'll do is do almost like a little mini battle report. So I'll probably add that on the end of this video and give you a bit of feedback as to kind of how it worked, how the strategy worked. So yeah, we'll come back to that shortly. Okay, so we've fast forwarded a couple of weeks, and I just played the game with Ivan last night against his Skaven. And I thought, yeah, it'd be fun to then do a little bit of like a post-game review. So we got some quite good photos and things throughout the game, and I'll do it as like a little bit of a battle report, I guess. So here we are, set up at just after deployment. So we drew one of the scenarios. It's just like a full width deployment for each army on either side, and there are no specific objectives for the scenario, but pretty much all of the secondaries were in play as optional. So just a reminder, what we did, we rolled dice for this in the league, basically to sort of randomly generate the secondaries. So in this case, we rolled the baggage trains. So you can see down in the bottom left corner there, you can see my baggage train, and Ivan's is that kind of cauldron at the back of the board. We rolled strategic locations 3, so that gives us strategic locations spread across the middle of the board. And we rolled 4 special features. So you can see the little well, Bretonnian well in the middle of the board that they're doing battle over, and that is a special feature. So that does some cool things. If you control it at the start of the turn, you roll a dice and you can get various buffs from controlling it, and then you also get a whole load of points at the end of the game from that. So yeah, here we are set up. I mean, my strategy, having thought about it a bit more since recording the earlier part of the video, was really I wanted to try and pick off some of the smaller units quite quickly. So he's got the Hell Pit Abomination, which is you can see on the left as we see it here, end of his deployment zone. He's got a unit of gutter runners, which he's put in the woods there, and just in front of his baggage train. And he's also got a unit of 6 rat swarms, which are not particularly scary, but they're a problem because they're immune to psychology. They're unbreakable, and they're, there's quite a lot of wounds. They're 5 wounds a base, and there's 6 of them. So it's 30 wounds to chew through them. They can really bog something down for a long time. If they manage to get in combat with you in such a way that they can deploy wide as well, it's also worth bearing in mind just the sheer number of attacks they're going to get back, because they get 5 attacks per base. So yeah, I wanted to kind of deal with those 3 units ideally relatively quickly. In some of the previous games in the league, he's kind of put those guys out on the flank with his big blocks in the middle, which was kind of what I was hoping for. In practice, that didn't really happen. So you can see the rat swarms and the gutter runners in the middle there, which just made them a bit trickier for me to get at. Because if I was going to charge into them, I potentially then would have exposed myself on my flank. So yeah, I wanted to deal with those quite early, particularly with models like the Green Knights and with my unit of Pegasus Knights and my Duke. They can chew through those things relatively quickly. But yeah, it was a little bit tricky because of how he deployed, unfortunately. And then the second part of my strategy was basically for dealing with his big blocks. What I really wanted to do was get them into combat with my infantry, so my men-at-arms, in such a way that I could then charge them in the flank with my unit of knights. So I've got unit of knights of the realm on the right-hand end there, and then there's also, you can't quite see them, they're sort of behind the Pegasus, but on the left-hand end as well. So bringing up either flank so that they can do a kind of pincer movement. That at least was the strategy. We'll see in a minute how that went. So yeah, this was the deployment, and then we moved to turn 1. So as Bretonnians, I prayed to the lady, got my ward saves, so Ivan got to go first. So he's kind of come forward with almost everything apart from the unit of gutter runners, and his Eshin assassin is he chose to employ that as an ambusher. So he's obviously rolling during subsequent turns to see if it deploys as an ambusher, but that's not on the board currently. He's put most of his characters. You can see the level 4 Grey Seer is kind of floating at the back behind the big unit of Plague Monks, and then all his other characters have gone into that unit of Plague Monks. So there's a plague, what's it called, a Plague Priest or something like that. There's another Grey Seer that's a level 3 wizard, and there's also a Chieftain, which is his BSB, is in that unit. By doing that, he gives himself a massive amount of combat res in that unit. So he's got in it, they've got Horde and Warband. So start of the game, he's got 4. Yeah, he's got a rank bonus of 3. Because he gets the extra rank bonus from Horde, and I need to kill at least 11 of those Plague Monks before I can start eroding that rank bonus. He's got a battle standard in there and a BSB, so that gets him up to 5. He's obviously going to have like close order bonus, so that's 6. He's going to have massed infantry. So that gets him to 7. And then he's got a banner there, which I think gave him D3 extra combat res. So he's going to have a static combat res somewhere between 8 and 10, which just makes that really difficult to deal with. Obviously, if I can get into the flank of him with something that can disrupt him, that will help. My knights could, hit him with a charge. They got first charge, so they would disrupt him and take away his rank bonus on the first charge. But there's always a risk there. If they don't do enough to break them, then there's quite a risk there. In terms of subsequent turns getting bogged down. That's that's a big unit, and the one of the big weaknesses of a Lance of Knights is that it's very low static combat res. So yeah, he's brought everything forwards. Not much else really happened. He's just threatening me there. We move on to my turn 1, and the Green Knight appeared turn 1 in the forest and critically within charge range of the Hell Pit Abomination, and just went straight for him. And this is something I'd kind of planned in the pre-game. I've got another video I'm going to release soon, actually doing a whole lot of math hammer on the Green Knight. Basically, like, this is not a fight that he's going to win. He's on the charge. Obviously, he's got the initiative bonus. He's going to go first, and on average, he's going to do something like 3 or 4 wounds to the Hell Pit Abomination, and then he is almost certainly going to just get demolished. Particularly the from the stomps. This is a strength 6 monster with stomp attacks, so even if he's fending off the other attacks with his weapon skill, he's going to die to the stomps almost certainly. And I kind of knew that. But the thing with the Green Knight is he can actually come back. And if he comes back, I mean, if you're playing the sort of by the book rules rather than anyone's comp, if he comes back, he doesn't give up his victory points. And the probabilities of him coming back are actually extremely high. I'm going to do another video where I sort of go through some of the maths on this in the Green Knight. It's something I've been working on for a while. But I was able to be very confident that he could appear, because he turned up turn 1. I could take him straight into combat with the Hell Pit Abomination, do some damage, get some wounds on it nice and early. Hopefully get it down to about half wounds, and then. Yes, the Green Knight would die, but he's almost certainly going to come back later in the game. Other things that happen, I think I did a few wounds to the Rat Swarm with shooting. Otherwise, Green Knight lost, and here's the positioning at the end of my turn 1. So what you can see, the Hell Pit Abomination has overrun forwards because he took out the Green Knight, which has put him right in the sort of the face of the unit of men-at-arms there. And then otherwise, my knights have just moved up. I think that the critical mistake I made at this point was I wasn't quite sure what I was doing with the knights on the right-hand flank. I think that unit of clan rats on the right didn't get played into quite late in deployment, and I was kind of committed to deployment at that point. I wanted to keep the knights close to the peasants to give them the leadership bonus. So the peasants can't use Inspiring Presence, but they can use the leadership of a model that's got the Knight's Vow if it's within 6 inches. So I was kind of trying to pair them up, and I wasn't really in a position to go around the flank of the clan rats. So at this point, what I was thinking was the big block of plague monks were in a position where they've got frenzy. They were going to have to declare a charge at one of my units of men-at-arms in the next turn. That was going to bring them forwards, and I was basically positioning the knights in such a position that I could then charge into their flank there. The Pegasus Knights and the other unit of knights are moving up the left flank with a view to kind of pincer movement that in the next turn as well. As you'll see, this plan didn't quite play out as I'd hoped. So we'll see in a minute. Moving on to Skaven turn 2. The Hell Pit Abomination has come forwards and engaged the men-at-arms in combat, taken out a rank of those. In hindsight, the prophetess who's in that unit, I really should have moved her out of that unit, got her away from that, because they were about to be in combat with the Hell Pit Abomination and probably the unit of Plague Monks as well. She doesn't have any assailment spells, so there wasn't any great benefit to keeping her in there, really. The Plague Monks rolled to charge, but fell short. So critically, because of that woods, that has an impact on the charge roll because it's difficult terrain. So yeah, they didn't make the charge roll, which meant they sort of just ambled forward a little bit as a failed charge, but they didn't come forwards very far at all, which kind of scuppered a bit of my plan, because what I was hoping was to hold them in combat, then bring knights into the flank to disrupt them, take away their rank bonus, and then hopefully kind of grind them down enough to break them. And obviously, being Skaven, it's generally a fairly low leadership army. So if you take away the rank bonus, that also obviously the warband buff to leadership goes with it. Critically, I have to do that with my knights because with the Knights of the Realm, the Pegasus Knights can't do that because they're skirmishers. They can't cause disruption, which is a bit of a problem there. So yeah, you can see, because he hasn't made that charge as I was kind of hoping, I'm kind of out of position at this point. He's then brought the unit of rat swarms forward, so just protecting the flank in the position it's in. So I can't even get the charge it really with those knights now. At this point, I had some options. I think that the really big mistake I made here was I could have charged the clan rats with the unit of knights on the right-hand side. It doesn't look like it, but it's a bit weird the way the lance works. You measure the view angles from the second rank. So actually, they would have just been within the front arc, and it would have been possible to declare a charge. Something I learned during this game was you can't countercharge a infantry unit, which I didn't realise. I thought I could countercharge. So what I did was I was a little bit worried, basically, about charging them and then exposing the rear of that unit to the rat swarms, which is why I didn't kind of go straight in and charge them. I positioned myself instead to try and countercharge, and then discovered, unfortunately, that I couldn't actually do that. So then got charged and blunted. I'm getting ahead. We'll see that in a minute. But yes, that was a big misstep at this point. I very much mispositioned that unit of knights. The Green Knight did return again in my round 2, so he's back. He's only got 3 wounds now, rather than 4, but otherwise he's back and he's fighting. So appeared and immediately charged into the side of the Hellpit Abomination. My unit of men-at-arms survived that first round. They've got some great rules, the men-at-arms. So they've got Shield Wall and Stubborn, which basically means that first round of combat, you can basically just auto give ground. You don't have to take a break test. So one of the rules means you don't have to take a break test. You can just fall back in good order, and then the other rule kind of stacks with that and basically says first time you have to fall back in good order, you can choose to just give ground instead, which is a really nice sort of trick to sort of, somebody comes in, charges you, and you know that unless they completely wipe the unit out, you can just hold them in place there whilst you get into their flank on the next turn. So yeah, Green Knight came back, immediately charged into the flank of the Hellpit Abomination, and this time he finished the job, which was great. So took out the Hellpit Abomination. That was a big kind of problem model that I was worried about in advance of the game. So that was good. However, when the Hellpit Abomination dies, he's got a rule where it's called Too Terrible to Die, and you basically get to roll a dice, and on a 1 to 3, he's just dead. On a 4 or 5, a swarm of rats bursts from his carcass, which is very thematic, and so that you get this rat swarm on the table that just appears anywhere within 3 inches of the model. Critically, not in combat though. It's not in the combat. It's not like he gets replaced directly with it. And then on a 6, he actually comes back and he recoups, I think, D3 wounds. And so Ivan rolled the rat swarm, which he placed just a bit up from where the abomination is right now, sort of towards where the knights are. You can just see on the top edge of the image. So this is where we ended up after my turn. So you can see I've kind of pivoted the knights a bit with my plan to countercharge if I get charged by the clan rats or the rat swarm. My erroneous plan. Over here, I've now brought, on the left-hand side, I've brought the unit of knights round so that they're in a position to get into the flank of the big unit of plague monks. And my Pegasus knights and the Duke have come around the back, again in a position that they can either threaten the gutter runners in the woods who are just kind of hanging around up there protecting the baggage train, or they could come into the back of the unit of plague monks, or there's this lone character out here who's exposed, so that they're threatening quite a few things. So kind of at this point, I sort of felt like the game was going reasonably well for me, and this is where everything, unfortunately, fell apart a bit. So the first thing that's happened, as I mentioned, is I got charged by the plague monks. Went to countercharge, at which point my opponent quite rightly pointed out to me that actually you can't countercharge against infantry. So suddenly my unit of Knights of the Realm there was getting charged, and if you get charged as a unit of Knights of the Realm, the lance gets blunted, which and also I don't get things like, they're quite hard hitting on the charge because they've got lances, which are only usable when they're charging. So if I'd been able to countercharge, they would have hit back quite hard. But not countercharging, they're just fighting with hand weapons. Once they've been blunted, there's basically just two models in the... I wanted to have a photo of it there, but I don't. So yeah, it would have been two models fighting with hand weapons. They're suddenly much softer, much less... particularly against an opponent that's obviously got a fair amount of static combat res, they're going to struggle to do enough damage to win that combat. The other thing that happened was that single base of rat swarm that emerged from the hell pit charged the other units of Knights of the Realm. And I didn't really want to get sort of too bogged down, and I didn't want to be blunted with this thing in the side of me and just waste several turns dealing with it. So I thought, what I'll do, I'll flee. They'll be close enough to my general that I can use Rallying Cry and use his leadership at the start of the next turn. It won't be a problem. I was a little bit worried, just in the kind of the worst case, if I use Swift Stride, that I could flee all the way off the board. So I didn't choose to use Swift Stride. And I just had a catastrophe. I think I rolled 3 or something on the flee roll. And he rolled really well on the charge. And it just went, even though it looked like a fairly safe maneuver, actually it backfired catastrophically. And the whole unit of knights got run down by the pursuing unit, by a single pursuing base of rat swarm. It was, in hindsight, an absolutely terrible decision. I should have just accepted the charge, spent a turn or two culling the swarm of rats, and then they would have been back in play and able to menace the plague monks once again. So things went a bit wrong. So here we are after Skaven turn 3, I think at this point. Yeah, Skaven turn 3. So what's happened here? The plague monks have charged because they had to my unit of men-at-arms and wiped them out, and then they've reformed to menace my archers on the hill. I think this must be after my turn 3 as well, because I've reformed the archers. They've lost their defensive stakes, but they were going to get charged in the flank anyway. So kind of, at least this way, I get a decent number of models in position to fight back. I have a fighting rank of what's that? Is that 8 rather than like 3? I'm also positioned such that he can't charge the archers without also engaging the Green Knight. And then, you can see basically both units of Knights of the Realm are gone. So the unit that got run down by the rats got wiped out. And the unit that got charged by the clan rats obviously lost the combat, particularly due to static combat res. They were outnumbered, so they fled. You can't fall back in good order in that scenario. And then they got run down by the clan rats. So Did they? No, they didn't get run down by the clan rats. They fled off the table. Yeah, as you can see, things going a bit wrong. My Duke attempted to, and the Pegasus Knights attempted to charge the Gutter Runners, who used Fire and Flee. So they've basically fled to position themselves at the back of the woods there. So yeah, the game's suddenly not looking great for me at this point. This combat happened. Was an absolutely brutal combat. You can see, I think at the end of the combat, I've got 6 peasant archers still alive. Particularly, he's got the character in here with magic weapon, and he's got Spectral Doppelganger, which he did manage. It was the only time he managed to get it off. It did manage to cast Spectral Doppelganger. The Green Knight still standing here, but basically died to combat res afterwards, so he's got unstable, so he takes wounds equivalent to the amount you lose the combat by, which against this, with all the static combat res, etc., was at that point he was a goner. You can see I killed about 3 plague monks there. You can see at the back. This was our combat res calculation. I promised my friend Ivan I would do a little bit of shout out. This is actually a little app that Ivan has created. I'll put a link in the description. You can download it for iOS and Android. It's called Roll to Hit. And it's got a load of functions. So it's got things like when you're trying to work out what do you need to roll to hit, whether that's shooting or combat, what do you need to roll to wound, etc. You can really quickly do that. If you're somebody who struggles to remember the tables and you're always having to go and look it up, and then you're trying to remember all the modifiers, etc., it simplifies all of that. It's a really great app. But actually, probably, I think that the function I use most on it is its combat resolution calculator, which is what you see here. You can really easily just go through. You basically just go down a checklist, add how many wounds, all the different things that, bonuses that each side has. It's really good to help you to not forget things. So things like I got high ground here, but I probably would have forgotten about the high ground bonus if I'm honest, were it not for the fact that it's kind of reminds you as you work down in the app. So you can see here, he had a total combat resolution of 24. I scored 8. So he beat me pretty catastrophically. And I was in a situation where anything other than snake eyes on my break test roll was going to be the end for me. So yeah, do check that app out. For complex combats like this, it's really, really useful. It's a really great piece of software that you can just get for your phone, for your iPad, whatever. So do check it out. I'll put a link in the description. Okay, we've moved on. We're now near the end of the game. So you can see the Plague Monks, basically they've moved on. They've ended up got themselves in a position in contact with my baggage train, which they did manage to destroy by the end of the game. My unit of Pegasus Knights, turn 4, they charged into the unit of rats. And I think this is they wiped them out, and then this is the end of that turn where they've then I think they've overrun after wiping the unit of rats out into the side of the clan rats, which are now engaged with my men at arms. So that's that conflict. That's one of the big bricks I'm feeling fairly confident about. I can do some damage to that now. The Eshin assassin has appeared and is menacing Lady Elise Duchar, who's down the bottom. Haven't talked about her much. She was very much an MVP in terms of dispelling. Did a really good job of just shutting down his magic. So obviously her dispel rules are quite powerful. Any double she dispels on, unless it's a double 1. And causes a wound to the caster. And then if you don't roll a double, it's obviously a dispel roll like normal. She's a level 3, so she's adding 2 for that. But then she also gets to add 1 to her dispel roll. So basically kind of gives you a pretty powerful, pretty good chance of dispelling, which is quite nice. So that was her main role. Didn't want to get her into combat, just used her to kind of shut down play from his quite powerful wizards. So yeah, she's getting menaced by the Eshin assassin, but he couldn't charge from the turn he arrived, and she's got movement 10 on Ariandir, the unicorn, so she's going to get out of dodge there pretty quickly. Here was the combat with the clan rats. Ivan needed to roll 3s to hit me. Just one of those great moments, just hilarious moments in a game where the dice just do not love you. You can do all the math hammer, you can work out all the probabilities, but at the end of the day, you are rolling dice and anything can happen. Very unlikely to, but in this case, you got 1 hit. So that went pretty badly. And as you can see, they got they broke and fled, and then they got run down. You can see my men-at-arms have restrained and reformed, and they're going to move towards the special feature in turn 6, which is great because that just gives me that, that the special features, it's who controls it at the end of the game is critical. So I do have a big enough unit with the right core unit, enough unit strength to go and control that. So that worked out quite fortunately for me. Yeah, the game kind of wrapped up pretty quickly from this point. I was in a position I could still charge the gutter runners with my Duke and the unit of Peg Knights from that position, which I did do. My final turn, Green Knight appears again. So he's been killed and come back twice now, which I love. I know a lot of people, so there's a lot of complaining about the Green Knight. Like, actually, you'll see in this game, like, there are solutions to him. He is powerful. I don't actually think he necessarily needs to be nerfed in the way he's getting nerfed. In a lot of the comp, I would say that as a Bretonnian player, but you pay a lot of points for him. He is a problem to be solved. But actually wasn't, as influential on the outcome of the game as you might have otherwise thought. So he immediately charged the assassin and rolled 4 1s to hit. Worst dice roll of the game. Can't believe it. The assassin dealt 1 wound back. This is his 3rd time on the board. He's now down to 2 wounds, so he got 1 wound back. He lost the combat by 1, so therefore died too unstable to combat res. So pretty poor end. In hindsight, I probably should have thought about also charging him with Lady Elise. She was in range, she could have charged. And just would have backed the knight up in a way that could have helped there. She wasn't at any risk because he doesn't have enough attacks to deal the wounds to actually kill her. So that would have been a sensible approach that I omitted to take at that point. So that was a bit of a technical blunder. I also realised afterwards I don't think we did any of the terror checks or anything on this. Those rules you always forget. So I don't know if he's got immune to psychology or anything like that. I'll have to check later. But yeah, I don't know. Would that have had an impact? It certainly would have impacted the ultimate result of the game. So here we are, end state of the game. So I've still got on the board my Duke and the 3 Pegasus Knights, 2/3 of a unit of men-at-arms, and Elise Duchar. So no, certainly wasn't wiped out. And Ivan has got at this point the Eshin assassin, the base of rat swarm that materialized from the Hell Pit abomination. It's just lurking in the woods there. But critically, that really big unit of plague monks that's also got all his characters. There was well over half of his points, well over 1,000 points wrapped up in that unit, because there's over 500 points of plague monks, and then 3 characters, at least 2 of which I think are well into 200s. So yeah, that was kind of the end of it. And the final score once we'd added up all the secondaries as well. A lot of extra points for the secondaries. So Ivan had around 2,300, 2,400, somewhere in that range, victory points, and I was about 1,000 victory points behind him at the end of it. So my plan didn't work. I think mainly because I made some blunders, really kind of turn 2-3 I with my knights. They were basically useless. They did nothing, and I kind of wasted the opportunities there. So yeah, that was the game. Hopefully you found that interesting and enjoyed both parts of the video. I'm going to wrap it up there. Obviously, if you've enjoyed this, do like and subscribe, and do watch out. You know, if you're interested in the Green Knight and some of the maths around the Green Knight, particularly his special weapon, there's some really interesting analysis on that coming up in another video shortly. So I'll hopefully get that up in the next week or so before Christmas. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.